So the solar plexus is the triangle on the right. If you have it defined, you are automatically emotional authority. This is the first on the authorities list, okay? So 50% of the world have it defined at about 50, and about 50 have it undefined. So half of the world is generating this emotional awareness, which is this energy and awareness, and it operates over time. So the emotional center, especially when we explain emotional authority, it's really about chemistry in your body. So go back and watch that call again, because it is really important if you're emotional authority to understand that your chemistry, what you might perceive as like certain emotions with reasons, are actually your body consciousness talking to you, giving you a fixed perspective in that moment, right? So I like to think of it like you're wearing glasses, and depending on where your chemistry is, that's what you're seeing out of the glasses. So you're going up and down on a wave until you have clarity of this whole essence of that situation, right? So it's kind of like the emotional signature of whatever it is you're deciding. For the people that are undefined, it means that you're truly an empath, right? We're all empathic in different ways, but when we talk about emotions, right? And we have all of these, therapists and psychiatrists and counseling set up to try to deal with this situation. If we really understand it, it's about processing through the wave for the defined people. The undefined people understand that has nothing to do with you, right? So if you're around someone and they're emotional, potentially if it's not healthy, that means you need to separate until they've processed a little bit more, right? If they're in the low end of the wave, you're going to feel that low end energy. And so the defined people really control the emotional environment. The undefined people are receiving that and understanding that and are very sensitive to it, right? So your moods, feelings, desires, pleasures, sex, food, all of this stuff is coming from this side of the chart. So there's a lot of great that comes with the emotional energy, right? We have all those pleasures and desires and all of that stuff. But then we also have the low end, which a lot of us are trying to avoid. Even people that are defined emotionally, you may spend your life trying to avoid this low end, trying to go, why can't I just be happy? How do I get rid of this like not good feeling?
Like it's being told that you're moody, or people who have, say you're moody, or whenever you're low, it's like they can feel it. It's so strong that it's like, why aren't you talking? What's wrong? What's the matter? And there's so much pressure to not be in the wave that you're feeling. That's been my experience.
I would say too, because I'm undefined emotionally, right? Both my parents are emotional, data people that have the emotional authority, and I do that to them. I might say, hey, like, how you doing? I'm like checking in constantly. Where are we at? Where are we at in the wave, So it is interesting to hear from your perspective that there's like that pressure of like.
There is a pressure to be up. There's a pressure because when we're up, they're like so attracted to it. And they, it's like so exciting and interesting. And then it's almost like the pressure to entertain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yep. So for the people that are defined, it's really important to know where you are in the wave, right? So there's a lot of different configurations, a lot of different wave configurations within this. So you have to know a little bit more about your wave and start to understand it, and then not identify like with that low end when you have the glasses on and it's black, right? And you're like, oh, this is all I can see. I can't access the rose colored glasses that I had before. And that tendency to jump into things when it's good, jump out when you're in the low end, that is a cycle that you definitely want to break. There's no awareness in the now, meaning when you're at the top and there's rose colored glasses, you're just seeing that. So everything people say to you, it's like, oh, it sounds great. And then the low end, it's like, doesn't even matter if someone's telling you you're so awesome, you're going to hear something else. We have undefined emotional center. It's like a window. We're receiving all of this awareness and emotional energy. Even if that person that's emotionally defined doesn't even know, we're feeling it, right? So we have to be cognizant of that and understand it's not ours. This is where all blame, shame, and guilt come from, is from this center. So even though the undefined people are trying to avoid confrontation, right? That could be the distortion. I've also seen the defined people, right? Try to avoid that low end, not being fully transparent, not being honest, trying to hide that they're in the low end.
Hold on. This is what I just wrote down is I thought it, like when I started learning about human design, that it was that it was the hermit that I would pull away and kind of go tuck under. But it's actually, I was trying to avoid the low or anyone seeing me or experiencing me in the low because I knew how impactful it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So defined emotional center, you're going through these waves and you see your impact on others, especially with the undefined people. You're plugging in there and they're amplifying it. They're getting really emotional, or maybe they're not. And what also can happen is the defined can do things to try to see where that emotional response is in that other person. So we want to look at that too. If you're defined, know that the other person or whoever you're with, we always want to be careful with how we use our definition. Make sure that we're not trying to use our emotions to get someone riled up or, out of spite or whatever it is. And really share when you're in the high end, right? When you're in the low end of the wave, it's not a good time to have the talks, right? Like these conversations about why you're upset.
Yeah,
Right?
it's so interesting. And I wish I would have known so much of this 30 years ago in a relationship, and even when my kids were home. It's so fascinating.
Yep.
My husband is not imagine my high waves of emotion.
Yeah. Yep. So a person with a definition, when they're in the low end, they'll mentally try to rationalize that. And what happens is you either blame, shame, and guilt yourself or the other person. And so the undefined people are like, I don't want to be blamed. I'm going to try to play nice all the time so no one can have any problems with me. And I'm going to sacrifice my needs so that, we don't rock the boat. And what happens is that we are not authentic and nothing is really in truth, right? So this center is, I love it. It's really important. And ask yourself, are you avoiding confrontation, whether you're defined or not? If you're undefined, are you suppressing your needs? Are you trying to be a people pleaser? Is that how you're making your decisions? Are you walking around on eggshells? Are you feeling responsible for other people's moods? So you're trying to make sure that they're in a good mood. Once you really start to recognize that, you'll see how you start asking the people, what's wrong? Are you okay? But then you'll start to see that you don't have to do that, and that their mood, their energy, that's for them. And if someone is in a reactive emotional projection, or they're pumping out this energy and you feel it and it's like, ooh, this is not healthy for me. I'm getting emotional. Like I'm starting to cry. I'm starting to, whew, and it's just not a good situation. Take space. But me being undefined, I've also noticed where, being around a defined emotional person can help me access what that feels like, to really feel these things deeply, and crying isn't bad, and all of these things, it kind of brings it out of me.
There for compassion and empathy, I would imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you guys seem to be, I don't want to like judge or label, but seem to be more matter of fact.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, the undefined people are not disturbed emotionally, and it's not really part of our process. So we experience it and feel it, and then we're like, "Whoa, what is this?" And if we don't know about this stuff, then we start making decisions based on our emotions. But that's not correct either. So,
Or trying to
yeah.
figure out what it was to fix it, like to make
Mm-hmm.
them happy or to make it not like it is. That kind of thing is where they become the people pleaser, try to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. And I have had people in my past tell me, like, when I would get emotional, because I am like matter of fact, I'm not real emotional about stuff. Even though when I was younger and prior to learning this stuff, I was surprised to learn that I was not emotional, because I was really emotional.
Hear that a lot from people. They're like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah. Sometimes the undefined people, you might think that you're way more emotional and it doesn't make sense. And then sometimes the emotional people with the definition, they're like, what are you talking about? And I have been in relationship with people that are defined. And, I've heard a few times, oh, you seem like almost cold sometimes, or that I don't have that emotional thing. And then when they do experience me feeling that, I've seen like some people like, oh, you finally opened up to me, or whatever it is, even though I'm there with them in their emotional energy. So we can share an experience together. So for the definition, if you have it defined, right, you're healthy if you're not making emotional decisions, right? You're waiting. You're never being spontaneous. You're in touch with how you feel. It is important for you to express and get that energy out. We don't want you to suppress how you feel. Just wait till you're clear, and don't make it about blame, shaming, or guilting yourself or the other. Yeah, feeling a sense of clarity before you make a decision, riding out your waves before you have those conversations, understanding how your emotions affect other people, and then being conscious of that, not emotionally pressurizing people, not being pushy, not being impulsive. And then I have like this little affirmation for the defined solar plexus. I take my time making decisions and know that I reach clarity over time. I'm here to be deliberate, not spontaneous. If it's unhealthy, you're jumping in and out of things, you're impulsive, decisions on the high and the low end of the wave, and you're sending chaos into your environment, and people are getting affected by that. And people are feeling pressure from you to make a decision like in the now. I've actually noticed that sometimes I feel more pressure from emotional beings, some of them. And you wouldn't think that because it's like operating over time, but sometimes we get that pressure more from emotional beings. Yeah, making emotional decisions, that's the unhealthy way. And then blowing up and then later regretting your decisions, right? Or regretting what you said. And then if it's undefined, the healthy definition of this, you're discerning who is emotionally healthy for you and who is not. That's the thing too. A lot of times in relationships, one is defined and one is not defined. So that's really important that you guys see if it's even healthy. If an undefined person is with defined emotional center and it's causing them to be emotional all the time, this is not going to be a healthy situation. Some people are just not compatible, and we have to, really look at that. Knowing when it's appropriate to confront things, that's what the undefined emotional center is about, is learning about confrontation and being objective, learning what emotions are, but not making emotional decisions, realizing what you're taking in is from the other, it's not yours, not getting reactive or attached to the emotions. You're good at being objective and just being an observer of the emotional plane. Whereas if it's unhealthy, you're bouncing up and down. We call it being yanked up and down on the wave, right? You're just being cranked up and then cranked down, feeling like your emotions are out of control, thinking something is wrong with you. Yeah, making spontaneous emotional decisions, avoiding confrontation. They call it like the solar plexus smile, like the undefined, where it's like you're trying to be that nice person and put on that face to always try to like people please. So recognize that. What needs are you suppressing? Where are you not speaking your truth? What are you holding back? Because the lesson with this is that you learn that confronting things is not probably going to be as bad as you thought it was. And that the more honest you are with yourself and who you are, the better relationships you're going to have. So try not to be avoidant, right? We see some people are avoidant of certain things. It's all just this conditioning. It's all based on fear because it's awareness as well. And we all have to stop avoiding things for fear of upsetting someone.
About to say, can you tell them not to take it personal when there's an emotional who's in a wave?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely part of it. And, people that I know, my friends and even clients, right? Because I'm open. So I'll even have clients come on the call and I'm like, hey, how are you doing? And when I hear them, if they're like, I'm doing good today, I'm like, okay, you might be in a wave, and that's okay. Let's reschedule, because you shouldn't really be doing much when you're in the wave. You're processing, you're by yourself if you're in the low end of the wave. And then I have other friends that are also emotional, and they'll just message me, hey, I'm in a wave. I know we scheduled for lunch today, but let's try tomorrow. And I'm like, cool, let me know if you need anything. That works out pretty good.
I end up spending the whole session just trying to fix something that doesn't need to be fixed.
Yep. And I've had certain people with certain configurations in their emotional authority that, it wouldn't matter what I said to them on the call because they're in the wave. They're not hearing it. And then they would re-listen to it later and they'd be like, wow, I didn't even hear how that was all coming out. And so this, we look at all the centers, you put them all together and you see what you have defined and undefined. You can see maybe why you're avoiding things or why you're not rescheduling. Why aren't you rescheduling when you're in the way? Why are you pushing through? Oh, my ego, or oh, whatever the story is. The more we can all be in that relaxed trust energy of life, and we are not in control. We're really not in control where our life is going. I always say timing has its own time. And especially if you have the emotional authority, you have to honor your wave above everything else. Your life's going to go a lot smoother.